So first up, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Brett Yanofsky. I am Director of Communications for AIGA DFW. There is yes, Michael, there is a recording that will be shared later on for those that are in attendance. So we are actively recording at this moment, which brings me to, actually, I got a slide after this one that we're going to jump to. But first, I want to let everybody know about our code of conduct for tonight. We'd like to let everybody know that any misconduct or harassment of any kind will not be tolerated. If you want to learn more, you can go to our website, aiga.org, and go to the code of conduct link to learn more about that. Before we begin, I want to mention that yes, this event is being recorded. If you registered for a ticket, you will be sent a video recording of this after the event. Give it about a week roughly, but we will send those out to everybody who attended tonight. Also, during the event, if you have any questions, there is a Q&A button in your Zoom window that should be right at the bottom that says Q&A. If you click on that and submit your question anytime during the course of the panel conversation, we will be fielding those questions towards the end. So we're going to have a little bit of our own questions that we're going to ask to the panelists here that are with us. But we will save some time at the end for questions from the audience. So make sure and ask questions. If you have questions specific to a person, just let us know that in the question, and I'll make sure that we address it directly to that individual. Or if you just have an open-ended question you want to ask, that works as well. And then, as you can tell, there is no video or audio for our attendees, but feel free to chat amongst everybody as you've been doing, sharing your location, sharing questions, comments about anything that you're seeing during the event. And you know, I'll be in there chiming in as well. So it'll be awesome. All right. So about AIGA DFW, our shared purpose is to create a place where design thrives for everybody. By everyone, we mean that we believe creatives come in all shapes and sizes. Whether you're an illustrator, UX designer, graphic designer, any kind of designer, you are welcome to be a part of our community. AIGA DFW is an entirely volunteer-led organization. We volunteer our time because we're passionate about building a stronger creative community in DFW and, of course, abroad. This is our board of directors, some of which are here tonight, as you can see myself, Brett, and then we also have Alex Flores, who's on here, who will be our moderator for this evening. And I believe in chat we have Lauren O'Donnell and a few other folks that are in the chat with us, and Stacy Jemison. Hey, Stacy, how you doing? So we got several people here in the attendee list as well. And Linda, awesome. This is our advisory board. We have an advisory board. They provide counsel and support for the board of directors, and they bring extensive experience and knowledge in the creative industry. All of these people have served at one point various levels of AIGA, from the chapter to the national level. And this is a sampling of the volunteers that serve on our various committees to make amazing things happen. All events succeed by the hard work and efforts of all of our volunteers. Without all of these amazing volunteers and more, any of these events would not be possible. So huge shout out to all of our volunteers who help us make this happen, help us with our communication channels and all that good stuff. And you too can also join our crew. We're always happy to get new faces involved. So if you're ever interested in helping us make events like this happen, you can email us. You can send an email to our chapter president, which is president@aigadfw.org. We will drop that in the chat here in a moment. And we'll love to talk to you and find out how we can fit you in to our crew. Currently, we're looking for a few volunteer opportunities on our communications team. We're looking for people who have experience in WordPress and or Twitter. We're also working on building our UX committee. So if you're interested in anything UX, web app design, AR, VR, anything like that, we'd love to have you reach out to us to find out how to get involved with that. We also have a future position opening up for director of membership. So if you want to get involved in leadership within the DFW organization, we would love to chat with you. And again, we'll drop that email to reach out about that here in chat shortly. And without further ado, I'd like to welcome our 4 panelists this evening. But first, I want to introduce Alex Flores, who will be moderating. He's a board explorer with us, and we'll be taking over from here. So Alex, I pass the baton on to you.
Thank you, Mr. Brett. I appreciate it. All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining us tonight. It's really exciting. We see people from all over the country showing up, shouting out, representing different AIGA chapters, different states. It's great. So thank you all for attending. And I am Alexander Flores, as Brett said. I go by Alex, though, if you know me, so as to not be too formal. But Currently, I am a creative director at Tandem Theory, an agency here in Dallas, Texas, and I think there are some tandem theorists in the room tonight as well. So, hey guys, and I'm going to go ahead. Enough about me, because this isn't about me. I'm just going to help facilitate our wonderful panelists and their stories, which you are all really anxious to hear, as I'm sure you are. First, I'm going to go ahead and go in alphabetical order, and I'm going to go ahead and introduce Mr. Anthony Armendariz. He is the partner and head of design at Fun Size, a shop in Austin. Hello, Anthony. Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and what Fun Size does?
Yeah, my name is Anthony. I founded Fun Size with my wife, Natalie, about 8 years ago. We're currently, we're still a boutique size shop. We're about 30 people. That's 27 designers with like a single sort of focus area, which is service design and digital product design. I also spearhead Fun Size Ventures. We invest in startups and technology companies that are founded by female operators, family-owned businesses, and minorities. My wife spearheads the For Good side, which is the equivalent of that for the nonprofit space. And I host a little show called Hustle, where I more commonly talk about design, because I'm really happy to be here, but I'm really nervous. I'm really nervous. So that's me in a nutshell.
You're amongst comrades and friends and all of that. So thank you, Anthony, for playing tonight. Next on the alphabetical list is Miss Kelly Welch Farquhar. Hello, Miss Kelly.
Hello.
You're Group Creative Director at ProPack Agency here in Dallas, and I will let you tell us a little bit about that, please.
Sure. ProPack is a full service agency, and that we really focus on brand engagement and shopper marketing. And our primary clients are PepsiCo, so we work on a range of brands that Pepsi and Frito-Lay have. Yeah, just really kind of trying to connect with that consumer any touch point they're at. So
that's awesome. That's fantastic. Very cool. Thank you, Kelly, for your time and being here for everybody tonight. And next on the alphabetical list, of course, just trying to be fair, everybody, Miss Melody Raffler. Hello, Melody. Thank you for being here tonight. Melody is a new Chief Creative Officer at BuzzShift, another agency here in Dallas, and I will let you tell us what you do for BuzzShift.
Hey everybody, my name is Melody. People usually call me Mel. At BuzzShift, we are a full-service growth marketing agency and business consultancy specializing in creating long-term sustainable growth for scaling and industry-leading e-commerce brands. So we have a heavy focus on D2C brands. And then for my role in particular, I head up both the content and the design team and making sure that the creative aligns with the overarching brand direction. And I also manage like freelancers and developers, streamline processes and projects, all while focusing on growing the team.
Awesome. Big shoes. Big shoes.
Thank
you, Melody, excuse me, for joining us tonight and loaning us your time and your knowledge. And last but certainly not least, Mr. David Homan, Chief Creative Officer at August United, which actually is not also here in Dallas, but in Tempe, Arizona. Is that correct, David?
Yeah, that's right. Hey guys, nice to be here. I've been craving human interaction, especially with the power outages recently. But yeah, I work at a company called August United. We're an influencer marketing and social media agency. We're based in Tempe, Arizona, but since the COVID and everything happening, we made a decision to go remote. So we've been hiring from all over the country at this point, which has been great, to opening ourselves up to a broader talent pool. I mean, we create brand ideas and we connect them to influencer brands, to human brands. So that's a big part of kind of what we do there. And we have a couple work streams. We have an influencer marketing stream, and then we have a social media work that's going on. And we've been kind of working really hard to kind of connect the two and do it in a real authentic way. And so that's what we got going on.
Very cool. Very cool. And I'm going to use the fact that you are, working at an agency based in another state, yet you are based here in Texas. That's kind of an interesting sort of point to kind of build on, knowing that, we have a lot of attendees from not just our immediate area, but from all over the country. And this is kind of a new thing for a lot of folks right now. Like, geography doesn't really tether us anymore, which is, some folks think it's a good thing. Some folks think it's a bad thing. And I want to talk about that with you guys a little bit later in regards to, the general topic of creative management and, leading teams, but we'll get to that later. I want to start from the beginning now. And again, just for the audience at home, what we're going to do here is just kind of throw these questions out like Brett mentioned at the top, but we're going to bounce around. Everyone's going to chime in with their views and their opinions based off of these questions that I'm going to ask the group. And then hopefully you guys will hear some interesting answers out of that, and maybe even feed and spur some new questions for the tail end of this that come from you guys, the audience. So again, let's start at the beginning. You're all here on our panel because you're at the top or near the top of your own disciplines within your organizations. But let's go rewind. Let's go all the way back to the very beginning. What was your first creative gig? How did you get it? And was it what you expected when you actually got it? And I'm going to throw the ball at Kelly.
Great. First one off, huh? My first gig right out of college was a brand designer at Fossil, the watch company. I think probably everyone knows that. And I, was looking after college. I knew a lot of friends had interned there and loved it and thought it was, really, creative environment. So I kind of stalked them a little bit. I think just, on their job postings, and finally they posted for a junior position, and I got in there. I'll be honest, it probably wasn't my first choice. It was an in-house, I wanted to go, to a big agency. But when I got there, I was really surprised of how great it was, like how this in-house agency really inspired a lot of creativity, because they had in-house photographers. Like my second week working as a junior brand designer, I was leading a photo shoot. So it was really cool. I got a lot of experience there, and I think it was a great springboard for the rest of my career.
So it was actually more than what you were anticipating once you got there.
Way more, yeah.
That's good. That's good. Okay, let's just move on down. Anthony, what was your first move?
I think it was like 1999, and it was a company, and I just graduated from the Art Institute of Dallas, and it was a company in Fort Worth that is such a random thing. They did consumer packaged goods for private grocery store brands, but they had an internal web design team. That there was like 3 of us nerds that were like, trying to figure out how to hack together websites. It was definitely interesting.
Cool. It sounds like they were ahead of the curve there. Boys say 99 internal web development team, right?
Yeah, I don't really realize what it. I think they were maybe trying to create their own agency or something, and my role at the time, I definitely started my career as a design technologist. So I was more about trying to hack design and ones and zeros and build things on the web.
So was it not what you were expecting when you arrived, or did it turn into, or was it exactly what you thought it was going to be?
No, it was pretty much what I expected. I wasn't a classically trained graphic designer. I was more about like trying to use emerging technology to take design and put it in digital spaces. And so it was pretty much what I expected. I mean, it was useful for me because I to understand how things get translated to code. I started my career that way versus starting with design.
Fascinating. Very cool. David, where did you start?
All right. So Philly in the house. University of Arts was the school I graduated at. And we had a portfolio review. And at those points, you had your big book or your clamshell, and you'd have your work all kind of pasted on the boards, and people come by and look at your work. You talk to them. I'm sure, it's just probably still some similarities now. But I met a guy who had graduated my program a year before. There were 2 of them actually, and they had a startup agency called Lucid Circus. And this was 2000. So it was when Flash was kind of like still a new technology. And if you can do anything in Flash, it was like magic, So So anyway, I came on board there, and I was designing, Flash websites, and it was different. It was like I went to school traditionally for like print and ID, identity design and stuff like that. And so this was like a very different thing. And it was just such a young crew at the time of just, kids trying to kind of figure it out and run this little startup company. And so it was good. It was good energy and good vibes. But it was, it didn't last too long. Yeah.
So it was kind of what you were hoping to get into, but it kind of fizzled out, is what you're saying, kind of, and that took you to the next thing.
It was just one of the things, it was like one of the things you kind of do when you're making your way, in this industry and trying to figure out, what it is you actually really want to do. I think like a lot of us got out of school and we were just kind of, we had an idea of what we were taught and what design should be or what we should be doing on that next step. And I don't think I was completely sold at that point. So it gave me a chance to kind of experience something different and then, continue on my path in other ways.
Very cool. Very cool. And moving on down that path, Mel, tell us where you got your start, please.
Well, my first gig out of college was being an in-house graphic designer for a leading technology distributor company here in Richardson, Texas. I was hired at first to help brand their yearly trade show events. So creating the graphics from the booths to the screens to the badges, any little touch points, obviously anything in a trade show. Honestly, I can say that probably was a really good first experience in my career path because I was able to travel to the different trade shows and work really close with the CMO to bring these ideas to life. And then from there, I was able to help redesign the brand's company guide. And that's when I actually started doing website design. I've never done it before. I got into the digital space with this first job, and I probably ought to date myself a little bit, but obviously this is when Dreamweaver was around. So I mean, being who I am, I just took on the challenge, and that's kind of how I got my first website design.
Very cool. So clearly we all come from humble beginnings, whether we had a clear idea of what we wanted to do or had no idea, and then quickly we're slapped in the face to be like, oh, wait, this is not what I want, or this is exactly what I want to do. I think the point here is that everyone starts somewhere and everyone starts in a place or in a way that you couldn't really, looking back, you're like, wow, look where I am now. And it's something, which is why you guys are all here, because you really do come from, we all start, like I said, humbly, but we all also kind of find our own paths as we move forward in our careers. And each one of you brings a certain unique path, whether it's by discipline or just how you started and in the software that you worked with or the systems that you had to learn. So now you guys are, like I said, at the top of, or near the top of, your organizations. You run big teams, or you're responsible for creative at your agencies, ultimately. So that's a big span from the beginning to where we are now. For the next question, what was it like for you when you made that transition from being a team member, when, those humble beginnings, when you were in different teams or parts of, larger groups, to then becoming a leader of a team? Did you have any personal hurdles that you had to overcome? Did you have, what did you have to leave behind in exchange for those new responsibilities that you gained in that leadership role? Like, what were the things that you had to check at the door, so to speak, once you actually made that change? And I'm going to go ahead and go to Mr. Homan, please, on that note.
I'd say you have to you got to lose a little bit of yourself in it, and meaning you start to kind of pull back and take yourself out of the physical creation of the work a little bit more, right? Because you're trying to play a role more in understanding, okay, well, what's the business need with this? What's the strategy that we're trying to think of to help launch the creative ideas? And so if you're a maker and a creator and you love that and cherish that, those are really great years to hold on to and to stay tight to. And so I feel like from my personal experience was that I got bored with certain things, and it led me into just wanting to solve problems. And so it was like I would see an obstacle or a problem or something in the way, and it would be like, okay, well, let's go try to fix that and do that, and then we can move this forward. So it's I guess I had to let go of the art a little bit, and the artistic side of things that I loved.
So, obviously you started very hands-on, and then as you climbed the ladder, you had to let go of some of those rungs and the other people climbed, but you're basically holding the ladder for them, so to speak, getting that new role. Not so much doing the physical climbing so much because you've already reached the top. Does anyone else have similar experience or have anything they want to build to that notion? Looking at Melody, I think you might have a little thought there, Bruin.
No, I mean, 100% agree with David about you shift into more of that problem solving, and you learn that, along the way that you thought you were starting out like I thought I was gonna be some bomb designer, but then once you start uncovering some of the problems within, where you work, and you start gravitating towards more of that problem solving aspect. I mean, previous to my current role, where I transitioned from being the team member to a leadership role, in the beginning, since it was a startup, I didn't really have that much guidance to build a team, to even learn how to build a team. So there was a lot of trials and errors. And that was my personal hurdle. But over time, I learned how to scale and grow a creative department. You also learn how to build out frameworks to make the team more efficient and help organize a team of, and I was so grateful to organize a team of amazing, talented designers to this day. And so I'm very fortunate to have worked with them.
That's great. Kelly, Anthony, any similar notions or contrasting ones to what David and Melody said? Anthony, I believe you're muted. Sorry, buddy.
I was never a good team member. So every job that I had where I was a team member, I was either fired or let go because I've spent most of my career being in charge. And so I definitely agree with like the investment in process and methodology to do good work, but I've been always a firm believer of culture and values and work harder, not smarter. So, it was really difficult for me to say, go to, work in studios in places like New York City, where the expectation was your day started at 8 a.m. and ends at 4 a.m. and you do that every day. Like, I've never really believed that people have to work 8 hours a day and like stuff like that. So I've never like really fit into the team member mindset. Plus I'm very OCD and kind of controlling. But when I think what happened with me is I thought similar to what Melody was saying, that I was this super special designer, but what I realized along the way after struggling with the growth of this agency, I was creating this agency, and then over time I was finding myself like going further and further away from that, like going into lead roles and then going into director roles and then getting in a position where I was just fully management. And at one time it was solely severely depressing for me that I, like almost resigned because I felt like I had no self-worth. But I had to like connect the dots and realize that, look back on my career, those moments that were successful were maybe because there was other people with different T-shapes that were augmenting my own weaknesses. And then I saw the connection of like where management can be designed. It's not designing things, it's designing the framework for people to learn how to do design. So like I haven't been involved in a creative project in over 5 years. I just focus on the tools and things necessary for people to learn how to direct or lead or do that stuff. It's still really hard for me sometimes, I think, to negotiate that in my head. But I think as you grow and your needs change, family or other things like that, and also like to see, at some level, I think it's our responsibility as design leaders or creative leaders to ensure that the younger generation has their opportunity to shine, and that you just have to get out of the way.
Wow, that's a very, very eye-opening and bold statement there. I mean, it's really I guarantee you there are people watching that are like, oh wow, he actually admitted that he's a bad team member. That's crazy. We're taught never to admit that. What's the matter with him? But it's this whole panel is why this, and an answer like that or input like that is why I think this is valuable to folks that are just starting out or trying to make that transition as well, to hear these things, to hear that folks like you guys have had that or have recognized that in your career about yourself, because it takes a lot to admit that. It's a very brave and bold sort of, move, and it's a very mature thing to reconcile with and admit, and then taking that information and then, using that to make course correction. Kelly, do you have anything else you want to add before I move on? Because I don't want to leave you out.
Well, I mean, my transition into a creative director role was honestly pretty shaky. And David can attest to it because he was my ECD at the time.
Spoiler warning.
I had a little bit of, I felt really confident in my art direction skills and design, and stepping into a leadership role. I just kind of had this imposter syndrome, and like it took me a while to kind of get my sea legs, that I am valuable. I do have this leadership kind of sensibility in me, and just kind of, let all this kind of worry kind of go. That took a while. That took, building some confidence. I, had a great leader and other teams around me that, helped me do that. And, it is, like David said, it's stepping out of, design and what I had been doing for, 15 years at that point, and taking on this challenge of now not only trying to develop my own ideas, but now develop others' ideas. That was kind of the change, the transition that really happened. It's really now more about how do I, build other people's ideas instead of just my own. And that's really fulfilling, actually. I always love to think that, I didn't want to walk away from design, but it's just as fulfilling and challenging to work with someone else and see them, create great things, through some of the doors I've opened for them.
I wholeheartedly agree with you on that notion, that feeling that it's really, it's going to sound corny, but it's almost like, and maybe there'll be people here that can agree. It's like if when you become a parent, like a parent to children, not a parent, not when it becomes evident, but when it becomes evident that you are a parent to a small human, you all of a sudden experience things and fulfillment from doing that you never thought were possible or never even had a metric to measure it by. It's very similar to that, what you said, Kelly, in terms of when you enable and open doors and clear paths for people that you're responsible for on your team, and you see them do great things. There's nothing like that feeling of pride and like fulfillment that comes from that. It's very unique. I personally can attest to that. But I want to go back to something you said, which I'm going to go a little bit off book here, because I want to hear what everyone else thinks about this, what their opinion is, real quick. You said a very poignant thing, and it's a term that I'm sure a lot of folks watching right now are experiencing, know about, or maybe they don't know about, and they're like, oh, so that's what it's called. Imposter syndrome. Raise your hand if you've ever felt that. That's what I thought. Brett, come on now. Tell us about how you reconcile with that, what that means to you, and what, I just want to hear what your thoughts on imposter syndrome. Mel?
With imposter syndrome, I think that's especially when you're shifting between different roles. I mean, and you're in certain situations that you feel like you might not have enough knowledge, or you don't know what you're speaking on, or are you really technically a design expert to talk on it? I think everybody kind of goes through imposter syndrome, even us in our, our being at the top of creative leadership. And to this day, and I'm not going to lie, like I still feel like it. It's not like it's going to go away just because you're at the top, anytime you're in a certain situation. But I feel like when I'm surrounded by the team and the people that are experts in that field, and then we're all in it together, I'm more comfortable, and I'm able to, even hear, right? Like Anthony mentioned, like, being shy. I mean, I'm the same way. I think myself as an introvert leader. And knowing, like, even now, I'm like, I questioned even when we got reached out for this panel, like, should I be on here? Like, I mean, so I feel like that's a normal thing to feel, and that you just have to, and I hate this, very cliche, but you just have to know your self-worth and and understanding who you are. And that's what makes you unique. You know, you don't always have to be somebody that's in front of like pitches and stuff and just throwing out and being a salesperson. Like, you can lead also just being a thinker.
Mhm.
So
True that. Anthony?
I think I'll start with a story. I've been working on a project it's taken me about 1.5 years to do, which is a redesign of our design teams, like career path ladders and rungs. Kind of a really difficult thing for me because I've never had to design like a career path system that can accommodate, a 30 plus growing design team, thinking about the short-term needs of the company and what we might need like 20 years from now. And I think that my intuition told me, as like head of design, that all of these 30 people depend on me to deliver this to them. And it became so frustrating because I felt like I couldn't do it. I then like hired like all of the expert, people that wrote the books on this stuff, like Peter Merholtz that wrote like Org Design for Design Org. I had all these conversations with career coaches and stuff like that. But what I forgot was that design is a team sport and we're all different shaped, right? Like you can't expect any one person to be able to do it all, right? If you use a basketball team as a metaphor, you need a 3-point shooter, you need a dunker, you need people that run defense, you need a coach, and you need an owner, and all those people have a role to play. So I was just talking to the wrong people. I should have been talking to my own team. So I think that like the story is that it's lonely. It can be lonely at the top when you're in design leadership roles, but like I would just encourage people to remember that if you're in the right supportive culture, this should be a team sport, and you should be able to work on these things together and not feel like you have to do it all of yourself.
True that.
I think that can help with imposter syndrome, even at the design level, right? If you're a senior level person that has a strength in like service design, you're going to get really stressed out or have imposter syndrome if you're working on something visual design oriented.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can structure your team in a way that, a service designer can partner with a visual design lead or something like that, like it doesn't solve the whole thing, but I think team building is one way that you can help your teams like get over their own imposter syndrome thing by letting them be a team. I don't really think this is an industry for lone wolves. But
yeah, you just dropped a lot of sound bites there in that response. Thank you, Anthony. David?
Yeah, there's a lot of good things shared in this last several minutes. It was funny when I heard imposter syndrome. It's like it resonates with everybody because you usually don't get put into these situations where you can lead a team or an agency. It's kind of a business need and something happens and then you get thrown in. So you don't like mentally have time to really prepare. And so everybody second guesses themselves. CEOs I know of companies now, I remember having conversations with them back then about taking on a certain role and them feeling so insecure. And so like, a lot of people don't know what they're doing, and you might not know what you're doing at first because there's a gray area in this, and there's like an intuition that you have to lead with. And the worst mistake you can make is trying to be something you're not. So I think that's what leads to imposter syndrome. If you come in and you're feeling these pressures and these anxieties of what you believe a leader is supposed to be, or how they're supposed to act or present themselves, or a certain polish that you need to personify, and then you just tighten up and then you sound unauthentic, and then people can feel that, and they can feel that energy, and they don't want to come along with you. And so I'd say like, it's a stupid thing to say be yourself, but like you have to be yourself to some degree to be authentic for people to want to really connect with you and to make those human connections. So I just think that's really important, is just to knowledge of self and knowing who you are as you continue to grow in these roles, and really putting the people first, and making time to make those connections. You can go head down and just be like, we got to do this, we got to do this, we got to do this. You got to pull your head up and take some time to think clearly and to connect with people and to talk with them and to like, just get to vibing, get to gelling with people. Because this is a really hard thing to do, right? To do this job, you spend a lot of time, a lot of hours with each other, and so there has to be a mutual respect, and you have to be able to connect and vibe with each other to get it done. So
know thyself and
Mhm.
know everyone around you, right? Thank you, Kelly, for pulling me off script for that. Do you want to add anything more or build off of that?
I would just say, figuring out that I just needed to be myself and not try to be the leader, maybe the jokester leader, really dynamic creative director that, my partner was, that I just needed to be myself and, with my Southern accent out there, and it's just all out there. And
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't really,
yeah,
I don't
no,
hear anything.
it's very subtle. So, just embrace who I am. And I think I still have to remind myself all the time, like, go in and just be yourself and, be calm and collected. And yeah, I think that's a big step of overcoming that syndrome.
It's fantastic. We're hearing a lot of really hopefully for the audience, valuable nuggets here of wisdom and just insights. So thank you all for indulging my detour there. So going back to the script, as it were, but it's kind of a nice segue out of that, talking about getting over or reconciling with so-called imposter syndrome, and just being true to yourself and being true to who you are, for the sake of not only yourself but to everyone around you and your teams. What's been your most challenging obstacle that you've personally faced in your leadership experience, and do you have any advice for all those watching who may be also facing a similar challenge? Let's start with I'm going to go back to Melody.
We'll start with me first, huh? I will say the most challenging obstacle I faced as a creative leader, and this is going on full transparency, is during my career path, is being overlooked for positions that I've worked hard for and sometimes not being taken seriously. And over time, that was discouraging. And because I'm going back to the stat that is true, is that 11% of creative directors are only women. And I feel like that's always been a struggle. But ultimately, my suggestion for that is ultimately, if you're ready for this type of position, nothing should stop you, not even that stat. I mean, I think that's part of my drive and why I'm trying to change that perspective. And it has got me to where I am now, and also the people, that I surround myself with and who believe in me. So that has been, I mean, it's transparency, like that's been a struggle.
That's great. I'm thankful that you brought up that topic and that notion regarding your particular struggle that only you or someone of your ilk can speak to. I certainly couldn't even say, let's talk about. I don't even feel comfortable about posing the question. But so thank you for bringing that to the floor. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Kelly. I'm sure you want to build off of that as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously 11% is a low number, but like 8 years ago it was 3%. So we're moving up.
We are.
But yeah, it is, that kind of, I've felt, I don't know if it was always true, but I've always felt there was some overlook at times. But I think, having the right leaders in place that, want that diversity is what really, and, continuing that myself is really what, I want to do. And that is kind of one of the most challenging things when, being a leader is staffing, right? It's looking at people and looking at all their strengths and not just the, kind of maybe the people that are bold and are asking for things and are always raising their hands. Look for even kind of having to look at the quiet ones that are killing it every day, and you can count on them. It's really kind of taking that responsibility in staffing and to kind of not even mentoring the team, but developing the team and giving them what they need. That's kind of been my biggest challenge. Is like, I want to give them everything and to help them with everything, but also at the same time, there's a lot of stuff we just have to get done. And so just kind of changing my thinking into, sometimes getting away from the creative, right? And just thinking about staffing and training and what needs the client has, kind of, that's a whole different aspect that, I don't think I was prepared for, being just, a senior or a junior creative.
Interesting. Clearly very unique perspectives on these challenges. Fellas, you want to follow that up? Any unique challenges you've faced?
I could jump in. I don't think they're unique. I think it's something that we all kind of feel is, how do you balance like workflow? Like feels like every year, the expectations are greater. It's like more for less, faster, higher demands, greater creative output. Like it just, everything keeps kind of accelerating. And it's hard to manage that. It's hard to manage the expectations. It takes a lot of like connecting dots between, account people and clients and creative people and studio people. You're trying to do the work. You're trying to keep and maintain positive energy. And you're also trying to, like, at the same time, protect your teams sometimes, because like we all have known certain creative people or leaders that might have just been about just getting the work done, and they lose track of that. Next thing you know, you're burying people in the ground. And Anthony, his point earlier around the New York grind and all that. I think a lot of us have kind of been in that place. So when you get beat up pretty hard, earlier on in your career, you kind of, you're like, I don't want anybody to feel this again. Like, it's not a good feeling. So, you just got to remind yourself of that, figure out how to protect your people and still get the work done and manage it. And it's a balancing act. It's not easy.
Anthony, do you have a similar balancing act you have to do with that?
I think the biggest obstacle that I'm facing right now is, it's two-part. It's like delivering designers opportunity for them to have whatever roles they want to have. Like, I've never like wanted there to be just like one path where it goes straight from design to management. I feel like designers should be able to grow as principals and executives in expertise, generalizations, management, or creative direction or operational direction. So because that's been the biggest challenge that I have, is like being taken on this path, thinking that I have to grow as an executive director, when maybe I could have just been a principal interaction designer, right? Or maybe if I was, maybe someone could just be, focus on, visual designer or something like that. Now, the challenge with that is I care about that even deeply now, post pandemic, when all of a sudden, like, the kinds of clients that we work with, like the very big tech companies and the Googles of the world, all of a sudden now can hire anywhere they want to in the United States. And now all of a sudden I'm competing for those same designers. And I need to be able to give them an experience. Like, if they're going to choose to go to an agency versus in-house, I have to deliver them an experience that's worth that sacrifice. And it's challenging to feel like, and I think about each of these humans every night. I have dreams about my people, and I'm thinking about, are they progressing the right way? Are they doing what they love? And it's like, it can get really, it sometimes can kind of drive me insane, because I know I can't like make everyone happy. And I know I'm not going to have all of the retention numbers that I want or the recruiting numbers that I want. And so I think it's just like, that's causing me to sort of think now if that's the kind of, back to the thing one, is this the job I want?
Fascinating. Anyone else want to?
People better at that than me,
Anyone else want to build before I move on? Because the next question is actually another segue, or rather this question is a nice segue to the next in terms of what you guys have just been saying. Anyone? Last call? Okay, moving on. But like I said, with all that you guys have said just now in terms of, dealing with people and dealing with your teams and wanting to protect them, and then having to do the balancing act of the demands and taking care of yourself versus taking care of your teammates, et cetera, and of course their clients and the actual work. Just to name a few factors that are rattling around in all our heads in the position of leadership. To you, what's more important as a leader, being a design expert or being a people expert? There's no right or wrong answer. This is really just your opinion. So, Kelly, what do you say? People or design?
As a leader, I think it's a people expert for me. My team is super talented, and I think you as a leader, you should surround yourself with people that are smarter and better than you a little bit. And I think I have that. So I think design, I have my team does that, right? And my kind of role is to be that people expert, with one, just how do I motivate that these people that work with me, how do I get to know them and what triggers them to do their best work, but also clients, how do I read them, how do I build a relationship with them, as well as my partners, my client service partners. So really thinking at this point, really knowing what makes each different kind of person tick is kind of big part of what I do.
Truth. David?
I love design, but there's no design without the people. I think at this point, it's about, you're trying to cultivate ideas and talent and curate it from different places. You start to, I don't want to say you get out of touch with trends, but you need to rely on the people that are understanding the trends to come and bring those to the table, and you need to big them up, and you need to find the right ways to connect them to the strategy, to validate them. It's at some point, it's, even if you love design and you're in this manager type of role, if you're trying to do the design, you're taking the opportunity away from those people, and you're also not doing it as good as they would be doing. So your job is to inspire good design, to inspire creativity. So
very inspirational. Anthony? Muted.
I was on mute again.
Sorry.
I was just thinking about what all the awesome answers. I forgot what the question was. Oh, it's about
what, in your opinion, what do you think is more important as a leader?
Short answer, definitely. I mean, every industry is different. Like for us, for example, there's difference in like a principal designer, creative director, a director, and a manager. We have specifically a management track. But I think the short answer for me is people. I agree with everything that everyone says. I think that the one thing about design that we should stay connected to is the future of design. Like, what services will people buy? How will people do that design? Will it be done in a studio or not? Is it embedded? Is it a collaboration model between internal teams and agencies? Like, I think we have to be able to future cast a little bit and stay connected with what the younger generations are expecting out of the jobs that they're going to accept or decline, and kind of try to deliver on that future.
The people are truly the future, are they not? Melody, you're next.
No, I agree. I agree with everybody, obviously. And staying connected with the future. I mean, that's why I joined TikTok, I mean, everybody's on it, and that's part of marketing for us, right? It's just being able to understand that these nuances are coming out, and even like things like Clubhouse, and you just have to stay a little still connected with things like that. And as everybody said, like, you'll have the talent and, to create the actual outputs, but leadership is about cultivating relationships, with people versus just delegating tasks. I mean, being able to understand your team members as individuals and their personalities, like what motivates them, what drives them. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what, what makes the people grow, as well as the business grow. I mean, I don't know if anybody's seen the, what is it? The Michael Jordan series on Netflix, but they, highlighted how that team just came together and how their personalities were just so different. Like, I mean, they had just accepted Dennis Rodman for who he is, and they know like he'll just go out there and do his thing. But I mean, he shows up on the court, and once you get to know how everybody's like motivation and how they interact, and once you come together to create that, amazing output, that's what leadership is about. It's like learning who your individual people are.
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree with everything that everyone has said. So thank you for that. And again, there was no right or wrong answer, but it seems like the right answer is people. I mean, and again, even to Anthony's point, like it does depend on like what discipline you operate in. And, one could argue that if you're really dealing in more marketing and advertising, you really do need to understand people, because that is who you are marketing to. And that'll just inform your designs to better connect with them. Whereas you might have other folks that are designing systems that, yes, may or may not be actually interfaced with by actual human beings. They may be, more technical systems, but you still have to utilize a team to get that system created. So you need to understand what motivates your team, like you all said. And so, very cool. Thank you for those answers. Really, really, really nice. To the next episode, as it were. Let's talk about, for the folks out there, let's talk about the designers who want to prepare to move into these roles, into management roles. If you could go back and tell yourself something, your younger self, like, this is what you got to do. What would you obviously can't do that. What can you tell the folks out there watching tonight? Something that they should, consider in this path that you wish you would have in your path. Let's see, Anthony, hit me.
I'll try to make it simple, because it's my answer is basically what I said earlier. I would encourage people to explore unconventional paths that may not be automatically there. Like, perhaps there is a way to grow as a principal or an executive in a specialization. Perhaps you don't have to be a manager. Perhaps you don't have to be a director. There's other ways that you can, if design is a team sport, there should be executive level roles for each of these kinds of things. I didn't know that, right? And I had never worked in a large enough organization, and it took me a little bit longer to figure out how to do that on my own in my own company, because I didn't have any support. But I would just think about that. I think I think we're taught that we start here and we go here, but there's actually probably different ladders to be on. So I would just really encourage people to really think about that, because if you look at design versus design direction versus design management, in my opinion, they're very different jobs. And just like a designer, when they say, like, think about what you're working on right now, because what you're working on right now is going to impact your portfolio for the next 3 years. Same thing, like with your role, right? If you get on the wrong path, you can course correct, but once you kind of develop, it becomes a little bit harder. Like for me, it would be really hard to go back to like a design path. It would be really intense. So I would just say, think about that, because I don't necessarily think that people have to grow by going down a management path.
Thank you for that. Kelly?
I would say get to know the kind of business side of things a little more. I think I grew up in my career as, just thinking I just had to know, be really good designer, really good art director. But, knowing that there's a lot of factors that go into, each of those projects that I, am given, and just kind of understanding how, agencies and the company works, like, how billing is, because I think that's something that, when you move from, in my kind of line from ACD to CD, that's where you start getting that. And there was never any preparedness in there. Like, what is that change to, now having to look at what's right for the agency and what's profitable versus what's just really cool stuff, or how do I budget for that really cool stuff, and how do I sell the client on that? So just ask questions. Like, you can ask them to the account people. You can ask, your creative directors, like, what are some of those kind of business challenges that, when you're, just starting out, don't really see, like, what's behind that curtain.
Yes, that crazy, intimidating curtain that all the magic happens behind, right? Allegedly, or sausage making, depending on how you look at it. But David, what would you tell the folks out there that are what's some good advice for them in their path?
Well, I guess I'd say, like, if you love designing and that's what you're doing right now, and you feel good in that space and comfortable and enjoying it, then keep doing it. I've seen a lot of people like try to rush into like these roles because they feel a certain expectation or a pressure that they should be at a certain place in a certain time. And I just don't think that's fair, to put those expectations on you. I kind of with Anthony on this. It's like, I don't know, if that's the way things are trending, and what, these traditional type of paths have to be in the future. So I would say if you love what you're doing and you love creating things, and you like the independence of that and the ability to be crafting that stuff, then keep doing it. And I think, man, I don't want to speak for all of us, but in my particular path, it just, things eventually happened that made me move into different positions and roles of leadership. And it felt like it was naturally progressing. It wasn't like, I don't think I was like hammering on the door of like my bosses or people that were managing me at the time and making these demands to move up. There were just kind of business needs, and things happened, and it fell in line. So I don't know, I guess just, if you love what you do, just keep doing it. And if you start to get bored with it, then start doing something else.
Keep it fresh. Mel, what do you got?
And to piggyback what David just mentioned too, is what you notice that a lot of creatives, chase that title, right? They're like, oh, I want to be a creative director because that's what I'm supposed to do. And I'm going to quote one of my favorite, obviously, if you haven't noticed my background, I'm a big geek person, but one of my favorite like Spider-Man quotes is like, with great power comes great responsibility. And that's because it's true. Like, people in this role, like, people are going to depend on you. The agency growth is going to depend on you, as well as the clients. You really got to like people and growth, because that's important in this position. So areas of focus for me is really understanding both the business strategy, as Kelly mentioned, and objectives, as well as learning how to cultivate relationships.
Truth, lots of truth being spoken here tonight. Thank you for your responses. And I'm going to do a quick check-in with Mr. Brett. How are we doing on time? We've got about just a couple of questions left, but I don't want to take away time for the mounting Q&A section, I'm sure.
Yeah, we're doing good. I would say give it another, I'd say finish through those 3 questions and we'll jump to Q&A. So yeah, I think you're doing good.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you for that. Just had to do a little temperature check, folks. So moving on real quick, like I said, thank you for these awesome insights and opinions and just clarity. I hope that the folks at home are feeling some relief, or having their eyes and ears open, like, wow, yes, that's amazing. I'm not the only one. Or maybe they're feeling a little bit stronger, a little bit more confident in where they're at in their career, or what they're facing right now. Because clearly, there's no shortage these days in the world for obstacles. And there already wasn't a shortage of obstacles in our own career paths here in this industry, in the design, management, creative direction, visual side of things, marketing, advertisement, having, just trying to throw a big net out there, because there's a lot of folks that are representing a lot of different disciplines. Even in the chat, there are some folks, chiming in, talking about like making these transitions and doing things. And that's going to kind of go back to, those transitions and kind of those goals. So everyone clearly has a different career goal that, and those goals can change over time. Was getting to your current position always the goal? And if it wasn't, what changed that led you there? And I think David kind of already talked a little bit about that, like, hey, business needs, like, things just happened. But anyone else here, like, did you always have like, I just want to be a leader, I want to be creative director, and even like what you said, Melody, like no, not so much. I just want to do things. I just want to make stuff. I want to make cool stuff. I want to do what I do best. But maybe some folks out there did have like their eye on the prize. Do you have that prize? Are you still trying to reach for it? And what changed? What changed your goals? Any goals that got changed? Anthony?
I pretty much knew since, I remember a time when I was at the Art Institute and someone came in, it was a previous graduate who was running at the time, like, probably one of the United States, like first web design agency, was talking about his business in San Francisco. And I knew from that moment that I was going to run my own agency. I just didn't realize how that adventure would wear me down psychologically, physically, how much struggle that would be, what kind of pains it would cause in my friendships and relationships. And then, I chose that aggressively instead of growing as a human being. So like, I feel like I lost a lot of myself on that adventure, but I am doing, like, if I look back at my task list, yes, I'm doing that. Like, do I wish that there were other parts of my world and my person that I could have developed? Yeah, I think I'm trying to devote I'm over the hill this sort of last half of my career in that direction.
Right on. Mel, I know you kind of already shed a little bit of light on there, but if you just want to kind of tie up any loose ends.
I would say yes and no. And it's going back to, like, in the beginning, I thought I was going to be this bomb designer. But as the years progressed, I started slowly seeing it shift more, like naturally, like what David mentioned, more into directing and taking leads on projects and making decisions, even if it was the wrong ones. And then I was also fascinated a little bit on the design operation side. So like managing timelines and projects, it's that whole problem solving that eventually ended up leading into more of a leadership role. And then I also knew in the beginning that I've always wanted to make an impact in people's lives, even if that could be one person or one designer, whether that's in their career growth or their personal lives, or just be that bridge to get them to the next stage. So that ultimately led me into kind of the management direction.
Very cool. Very noble. Thank you. Thank you for your service.
You're welcome. Captain America back there.
Exactly. There you go. Kelly, goals changing.
Yeah. Well, I think it was a lot like Mel. I mean, my personality in general is always going to be the one that wants to do more and more climb. I'm just kind of have that achiever mentality. So I can't say I was really like, I want to be a creative director, or a group creative director, but I knew I wanted to be the next level, and then I'll keep going. I would say there was a point in my career where I was thinking, like, I kind of just seen my bosses, what all they kind of took in, kind of seeing that, oh, I don't want to have to deal with the business side. I want to stay, as an ACD creative director where we're just still focused in on creative and not some of the other stuff. But as I got moved up, there was just like, oh, I kind of like Mel said, I want to help people. I want to help other people, and just kind of growing. I kind of just grew into that, and that became my next achievement. And I think just my personality is going to make it always me want the next thing.
Know thyself, right? Just like Mr. Holman said. David, you did kind of touch on like business needs has kind of propelled you, but did you always have it in mind that you wanted to be in a leadership role, or was that just purely circumstantial in your case?
Absolutely not. I never thought I wanted to do any of this. I struggled a lot growing up with just like self-confidence and self-worth. And so I hated the idea of having to do the things that you'd have to do as a leader in terms of like, public speaking or like client presentations and things like that. And those kind of things would give me I get like panic attacks. I would, I couldn't handle it. It was like a lot of stress for me based on like my current mental state that I was in when I was much younger. I go back to the Melody said, introverted extrovert. So I would say that that's kind of my personality. That when I feel comfortable with people, I feel alive and I come alive. And I like that connection to the work and to the people so much more than the physical making or creating of it at this point. I have no patience for that at this point. Like, for the design work, the kerning, the this, that, like, I just, I can't handle that. But what I do love is I just love those connections with people, and then like bigger production like type of jobs where you're kind of maestroing and grabbing all these different elements of things and putting them together into something. That's kind of where my head is at now.
Thank you. Thank you for that very honest proclamation there, man. Very cool. And I think a lot of people can kind of feel, a little bit of what everyone said. I certainly can, for sure. And again, thank you all for being so candid and open with your pasts and your positions, and hell, even with your hearts, you're opening up for everybody here, which is great. It's about people, right? And kind of going back to something that or a few things that you all have said already leading up to this point. I'm curious as to when, because I'm sure it all happened to you guys. I think it happens to everybody once you've been in this, this industry for a while. When did you get discouraged and you just wanted to like get out? Like, I just want to go build fences from now on because I'm done with this. I can't do this anymore. I just want to go make cupcakes forever because I can't deal anymore. When did that happen? And how did you get past that? And what did you do to get back on track? Because clearly you're still in it and you've been climbing. So what was that pivotal moment? And what did you do to kind of reset? Kelly?
Sure. I mean, I think when I was younger, every time my creative director didn't pick my concept, I was like, oh, I'm horrible. I need to go do something else. But I think the one big time that I was laid off in 2007, and it really shook my confidence, not just in myself, but in the ad agency, in the advertising world. I'm like, if I worked at a small agency, they were booming, doing great when they hired me. 2 years later, they'd lost 3 clients and had to shut the door. And I was just like, how can this happen? Like, how can an agency do this? And do I want to tie myself to this? And so during that layoff, I went and I thought maybe I want to be a teacher. And I went to this orientation, and within 15 minutes of sitting there, I was like, okay, I'm going to go start designing and start putting those resumes back out, because I knew that wasn't my path. So there's been times when I thought I'm going to switch and, maybe do something else. But I think at the end of the day, the kind of passion and just comfort I have in this industry and, with design, and it led me back.
Wow. Yeah. Teaching, you don't say.
Yeah,
I mean, it's no, but I no disrespect to teachers in the audience, but it's great that you realize, you know what, this isn't for me, as opposed to like, I'm just going to dive into this and and trudge through, and full well knowing that wasn't your place, and that wouldn't have been fun for not only you but any pupils that were in your classroom. So. Right. Appreciate that, and thank you for returning back to the fold, as it were. Anthony, what pitfall did you trip on? That really
there was only one moment for me that was a moment of like, I think I might be done with this industry, and that was around 2007, 2008, and I had just decided, you know what, I got into this industry because I was into like the stuff we talked about earlier, like, CD-ROM design and like animation and onion skinning and all that kind of crazy cool stuff, and hacking together websites, and all these things were a unique expression. And then, by 2007, like the web design industry had become, UX design came in, and sure, it helped businesses, but it made all the design so patternized and structured. And I was like, how many of these freaking carousels am I going to do? I'm like, I got to get out of this industry. And then it was the iPhone that like saved that for me. I was like, oh, well, yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm going to go digital product design. And I think that kind of pattern for me like persists. Like I feel like, you all probably feel the same way. Like I'm interested in this industry because how fast it changes and how much there is to learn, right? So I think being in this industry is like getting a lifetime of education, right? If you like you get tired of web design, go to product design. You get tired of product design, go to service design. You get tired of all that stuff, like, go back to specialty. If you get tired of that, like go to like help companies that don't know how to do design, learn how to do design, like 100-year-old companies that are doing design for the first time, but I also think that I feel like if what's inspiring me right now about our industry is the fact that it's not so binary anymore about in-house work or agency work. What's inspiring to me is that agencies and in-house teams realize that the symbiotic partnership for mutual success, and they can snap on and work together long-term. Because no one wants to design like things that they never see get built, and that can be really discouraging too. So I'm a little nervous about sometimes the way the industry is going, but I think that's the thing that keeps me going.
Cool. Thanks, man. Mel.
So mine's more like what at one point where I got discouraged. It's not just at one point, but it's that sense when you finally get burned out. I think we've all experienced it in our roles, especially as demanding. You feel like when you're putting in so much work and you're over multitasking and you're putting in a lot of hours, you hit that wall at some point when it's like nonstop on a daily basis. I think that's when I get discouraged and be like, should I be a baker or just be a podcaster or something, right? Or but honestly, what has got me back on track is really the people that I do surround myself with. I have a great support system. I have really good close friends and family and team members that kind of give me that word of encouragement. And again, going back to not sounding too cliche, but you got to like have self-love and give yourself those mental breaks and not feel guilty about it. I was at a point where I did feel guilty just to even take a break. Like, should I take a break? I don't know. As Anthony mentioned, like the world keeps moving fast and you're like, I got to keep up. I got to keep up. But, you have to allow yourself that, because if you don't, and going back to like our roles is like, you're always trying to have to produce at the highest level quality and managing people and always be on. But again, you'll burn yourself out. And if you don't, it doesn't help, it doesn't help your team members at the end if you're not physically or mentally well. But so, yeah, I just really, my support system is what grounds me a lot.
Right on. Agree. David Homan.
I'd say like, you gotta have like thick skin. There's like times that I've really, felt beat up in, maybe sometimes it'd be like client interactions where you could kill yourself, right? Like for like days on end, you're so dedicated to something, you feel a lot of conviction for this thing you're creating for them, and it might not be perceived well by them, or they might not want to kind of partner with you in the way that you would expect. And it's difficult, right? Because it's like, you feel that you're giving so much of yourself into this, and you have to work really hard to actually get the work created. And sometimes you might have a client that might be difficult to manage, and you can come out of these meetings and you could just be so upset or frustrated because you're like, well, what didn't they see? Like, this was great. Or, I'm just trying to help them and they're like trying to make it difficult. And so it's just, there's a lot of like just emotion kind of wrapped up in that. And then also like with egos of other creatives, it's kind of a thing where you have to check your egos at the door. And like art is so personal for a lot of us. Like it might have, it wasn't like we chose to be a designer or whatever. It was like we just had creative minds and our brains work like that. And it was like, okay, I got to find something I need to do in life, and you kind of end up in this place. And so like art is like when you're making stuff. I remember making stuff and just feeling so personal about it because it was like an art I was creating, and then it was going into this commercial space. And if it was criticized or whatever, it was like, oh, like, you know, it's hard to take that, you know? So I think it's like a wave of love that you fall in and out of. And, you know, there are weeks where you know, you might not want to, you just don't have the same kind of feelings of passion that you had for it previously. And then something will happen. You'll get some job or something will happen, or you'll watch some kind of documentary, or I don't know, whatever it is.
Yeah, sure.
You'll find something and you'll feel that jolt, and then it all comes back. So I guess I just haven't had these long enough periods of not getting back up on the wave where I've felt like I got to get out. You know, it's always kind of come back up.
I like the waves of love. I mean,
Waves
that's
of love,
good.
right? Yeah. It is a love affair. And, you know, some days you're like all about it, and some days you're like, get off of me. Like, no, I don't know, leave me alone, you know? So
I agree
I
with
get
like,
it. I
you
think
end
that's
up
a
like
really cool.
watching. I agree with that. You end up like watching something. You're like, all right, I'm gonna get off this couch. I'm more motivated again. Like even like the Michael Jordan series on Netflix,
Yeah.
or some of the coaching and documentaries. Like, okay, I got this. I could do this again. Like, I agree with that.
Nice. Brett, I see we're approaching the end.
That's right. I think the one of the I can start throwing into some community questions here. But one thing I did want to ask that we've had a few people talk about is just obviously from 2020 and the fact that we had to drastically shift to a remote work life very quickly. What was that transition like for you all as creative leaders, and how is it now progressing now that we've been well almost a year into this big transition?
Who wants to take the first step?
I'll go. It was a little rocky at first, but I feel like it actually went pretty well. My team was already working from home from time to time, but we really just all kind of dove in and partnered together, helping each other out, through VPN, issues and server issues. And we really didn't kind of miss a step. And then as we kind of got longer into the this past year, we found different ways and different technologies that help us be collaborative. I know that was kind of missing at first. I think that's where we kind of were a little rocky at first, but through like Miro and a bunch of different technologies we've instituted, it's really kind of been quite interesting to see how people collaborate in this different medium, and how it's a little different than in person, but it's still a lot of great things are coming out of it.
Anyone else want to build on that? David?
Yeah, it's been surprisingly good. Like I didn't think, and I came onto this company with no connections to any of the people that I worked with, and I've been pretty surprised at how well it's been. Now, obviously, it's got it's ups and downs and things that are everybody's trying to kind of work through. But I'd say I think one of the challenges that everybody faces is like these, the accessibility to your machine, especially for people that weren't working from home before this, and not like giving yourself or team members kind of the personal space. I think Google wrote something on this like morning commute, and the idea that like now that we are not commuting, like you still have to allow yourself that time for this kind of morning commute. Otherwise you could just find yourself sleepwalking up to your computer, starting it up and like going, because you're hyper fixated on, the things that have to get done during the day and the people you got to connect with and talk to. And so you're just like, oh, should I do this? So yeah, it's just like, there's like more discipline that has to be put in place on like personal boundaries and slacking people in different hours of the night or whatever. And none of it is done, like to try to like invade somebody's space. It's like life and work is like, it feels like it's blended now that it's in the same space.
True that. Anthony,
I personally don't like it. I mean, my coworkers are my friends, and our company has always had a culture of like deep friendship. So we would be hanging out prior to work, during work, after work, weekends. Like that's the kind of, at least the company that we had prior to the pandemic. And after the pandemic, our company doubled in size. So of course that changes a little bit culturally. I think we struggled with that at first, like, oh, what is this going to be like? And all this and that and the other. But I just think it is what it is. And I don't think it's ever going to go back to the way that it was. And I think for it's competing for talent, my personal belief is we're now in a world where people choose where they want to live and where they want to work. And so it's going to be kind of hard to do the things that we all probably were proud of, like really proud of being a Dallas-owned company and this Dallas culture, this Austin culture, or this Texas culture, right? Like I think there will be these like pockets where people will come to work and maybe for a workshop or, for some, direction or discussion. But it's kind of hard for me to think that people will spend more than 20-30% of the time in a physical space post-pandemic. So it's going to be harder a little bit for like the younger people to learn from the senior people, right? I think that's that's one of the bigger challenges that I see, because you don't get that like opportunity to mimic someone at a whiteboard or look deep into a Figma file or a design file with someone side by side. So I don't know. I think there's going to be some challenges there, but I don't know. I really don't like the way that this is, but I mean, I've just kind of, I guess, accepted it's just the way it is.
Indeed. Melody?
I guess it's similar to David. Like we both kind of went into a new position during this whole COVID situation. And then for me also, like not knowing anybody that I like the team itself before I even got there was a little challenging. But again, we had with the whole right technology and just the way the team itself is, we're so collaborative now. And I feel like I know them, even though I've only met majority of them through the screen. I finally ended up meeting, a couple of people in person, and, it just feels so natural because we just been talking every day. So in the beginning, it was a little hard, but now like everybody says, like we're kind of getting used to it.
Very additionally eye-opening insights from you guys on that. Thank you. Brett, what's next on the docket from the audience?
So we have several questions regarding just, when you're a design leader feeling isolated sometimes, especially when you're at the top of the company. Who do you reach out to as your confidant or people you can communicate frustrations to regarding design leadership or just advice? Like who do you go to for those tough situations that aren't something you can find an online tutorial for, by Googling or whatever, like, things, working with team members, handling certain problems, those kinds of things.
Great question. Does anyone want to take that one? Did everyone hear it?
I would say a couple things, like if whether or not your company has a formal like mentoring program, I would say like finding a mentor within your organization that's someone that you are kind of wanting to be like, whether it's a soft skill or hard skill, and some obviously like your reporting structure in an organization, but external leadership coaches I found are often helpful as well. It takes a little bit of an investment, but it's kind of like a psychiatrist or your own career. I found it extremely useful. But I think I'll pass the torch to the rest of the group because I don't really have anyone above me that I can go to in my company.
David?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned of a mentor. I didn't know I had one, and I used to call this dude all the time. He was my boss at one point. He was my executive creative director, and every time I found myself questioning something or trying to just understand what it was that I was signing up for in the next stage of, this career or whatever. Or if, he just became this guy I would call. And it was like, I don't know, like I eventually just was like, oh, I think like you're my mentor. Like and so I still call him to this day. I mean, I called him like 6 months ago or whatever. I think that's super important. And I would love to give that back to somebody if they ever needed that. I would more than gladly take the time to talk to somebody and help them in any way possible, because I just think it's super important.
I think on the flip side, it's also safe to say that you might be someone's mentor and not even know it. That might be something that might be going on. You may have already achieved that. Mel, Kelly, do you have a go-to or wish you did, or looking for one?
Oh, you go, Mel.
I go ahead and reach out to David to become so he can be my mentor. But it's always in my past, it's always been my previous boss, and even our current CEO is a mentor for a lot of people in our company, and he's so easy to go to. And if I have any questions or any ways of that I need to handle something, and he's always been there. So it's always been my current bosses.
Kelly?
Yeah, I actually, my current boss, I bounced a lot of stuff off her, but also talked to my creative director, the person, I guess, first person under me. She, really helps me kind of go through talk through things. She gives me another perspective, because obviously she's as deep, integrated in the team as me. And hopefully by us talking, she grounds me, and hopefully I'm shedding light into what the next position for her is like, and just bouncing it off someone that knows what's going on. And then to kind of gain perspective, sometimes I just bounce things off my husband, who has no idea what I'm talking about, and he just thinks I'm crazy. So it kind of level sets me. I'm like, okay, that I shouldn't worry about that.
Sometimes that's helpful though, to
Yeah.
kind of get feedback from somebody who is far removed from the situation, because they're going to come in. Yes, they may have, like in the case of a spouse or a relationship that is outside of the workplace, you're going to get a little bit of bias in there, but also you're going to have a cleaner slate and less bias towards the situation that you're in, in terms of the workplace. So that can be helpful sometimes. And sometimes, you have to reach out to those that are immediately next to you at the workplace. So we all have to just get it where we can find it and hope that we can trust that source. Brett, what's next? How are we doing on time, by the way, sir?
Yeah, we are at 8:05. So I'd say we got about probably another 15, 20 minutes here. If everybody's good, it depends. I don't want to have people here where they're, getting ready to go to bed or anything like that. But we have to 8:30. So we got enough time to answer some more questions here.
Well, let's do a juicy one.
Yeah, that's right. So we have several questions around hiring. So looking at what does your hiring process look like? What are you looking for in hiring people to add to your team? And especially now, knowing that things are largely remote, and how do you prepare for that, and what are you looking for?
I could see that as also like what you value in those that you seek out. Not so much like I need a UX designer that has X amount of experience and this, but that is all going to be unique to each one of your roles. So what do you value in your teammates? What do you look for that isn't necessarily a hard skill, but maybe more of a soft skill? David, I think you got something you want to say, right?
Oh, I was just gonna say, drive is super important, and that somebody actually wants to be there, that they kind of align with your company's brand vision and purpose. And so, I think, there's, somebody can be a really great talent, but if their heart isn't in the right place and it doesn't feel like, they're really in it, I would choose to work with somebody who might not have that same level of talent, but is really is really driven and really wants to do something. I mean, I've hired people that we've questioned whether or not they were going to be the right fit, and then they would go off on their own and come back and be like, hey, like I like designed all this stuff, like based on some of the things you were talking about in our interview, and I wanted to share it with you. Maybe it can help you guys. And you're like, whoa, like that's super cool that you took the initiative to do it. And it's like, all right, well, like, come on, let's work together. You know what I mean? Like, and so I just think, and those people have, just turned out to be great and have grown in their careers so much. And so I guess it's just somebody who wants to be there, and aligns with, your values and your purpose of your company.
Hard agree. That for me, Kelly, what do you look for in your people?
Definitely, the chemistry, if they're going to fit into the team and in the company, but also just, I know I want to make sure they can also do the job, of course, but what else do they bring to the table? What beyond, design or writing do they bring to the table? Like, do they have like a passion on the side for music and like, oh, we at some point during video process we can leverage that, or do they have an illustration side they love? And just kind of seeing these other talents that will grow the rest of the team, or just can contribute in a different way. Just kind of looking at what else there is in this person that could be interesting and that might lead to more opportunities within the agency.
Hashtag added value for sure, right? Mr. Armendariz, I'd love to hear your criteria.
I mean, I agree with everything that's been said so far. Similar to something that a panelist said earlier, I think you should work with people you want to be with too, because we spend so much time with our coworkers, sometimes more than our family. And so I look for people that I want to be around, and I value that higher than what their skills are. Because this is a people business, like we just talked about. I mean, I think the other thing, like in our industry where we're talking about service design and digital product design, we look for people that ask the right questions about. It's not necessarily about like the design stuff, but when they ask questions like, how will my work impact a business's bottom line? How will this impact the millions of people that use this product? When they talk like that, we can get the sense of like, okay, well, whether they are a veteran level person or a junior level person, they're thinking like a product designer. So and that's important for us because we don't necessarily like most of our hiring are from the junior ranks. Like we actually a significant amount of our hires are more junior level, and we train them. So like it's really important to bring in career switchers and stuff like that. So we also look for we also have a lot of conversations about previous career history and stuff like that. But yeah, but what everyone else said, I think is probably what I think about the most.
Good deal. Thank you, sir. Melody, what do you look for in your teammates?
Yeah, I obviously agree with everybody. I feel like if you have that desire and some level of talent, I just would want to work with you. I've always had, again, going back to I've always had this empathetic bone in me where I just really care about developing other people, because anybody that is willing to put in the work, then I want to give every tool, everything that I've learned along the way and help maximize their ability, right? Same thing about what Kelly mentioned, like going back to being kind of like that team marketer. Like you go deep in your field, but then also be broad. When I do interviews, I also like to know, like, are they thinkers versus like, are they just honed in on like, oh, that's my design and I'm going to hold it close to me. Because at the end of the day, like in our fields, like it's not about outputs, but about outcomes, right? What is your design going to do out in the world that is there? If it's not like engaging with the consumers or any of along the way of the customer journey, and from the awareness to loyalty to conversion, then there's it's not going to work. So I definitely look out to see when I'm interviewing if somebody's a thinker, for sure.
Duly noted. Thank you for that. Brett, what's next? What do we got?
So question around balancing feedback and you know, critique and inspiration, stuff like that, especially if you found yourself like stepping into like a leadership role where previously you were amongst the team and you step into that new role. What is that transition like, and how do you find that balance between, you know, not being too harsh or not yeah, I mean, what does that balance look like moving?
I love this question, and I'm sure there are some folks here that could actually speak directly to that. Rising out of the ranks, all of a sudden becoming a leader of your peers when you used to, you know, run around in the trenches together and maybe, you know, talk shit about the boss, and now all of a sudden you're the boss. And now it's like, how do you maintain those relationships and that trust while still maintaining that distance and that necessary, you know, space in order to lead? David, I'm throwing it to you first.
So you have to be honest, right? And like everybody has to walk into it being honest. The only way the work gets good is if you beat it up. So like everybody has to be kind of open and willing to be able to have those conversations. You don't have to be a jerk, you know, but like you have to be honest. You could go the opposite way and be too soft, and then next thing you know, like because you're trying to carefully, delicately talk through everything, it doesn't get fixed, and then I don't know, you're on the back end trying to fix it behind somebody's back. Who would want that? You know what I mean? So like, so I think it's just being real and being honest with each other, and maybe that comes. A lot of that came in school. I remember we had a lot of teachers that are professors that kind of embrace that. So you know, I kind of brought up that way, and that's just the way, you know, I engage in critiques or looking at people's work. And you know, you also have to be able to listen, you know, like, because you might already see something and just, oh, that's totally wrong, like before you so like you got to shut your mouth and hear what people are saying, and then you're like, be like, oh, whoa, okay, I didn't even think about it like that, but now you're saying it, like that makes total sense, you know. And it's okay to say that too, to like outwardly say that, to you know, to be humbled and be a little bit self-deprecating if you catch yourself, like nobody's perfect, you know. So
the brutal honesty. Got it.
Well, not brutal, just honest.
Yeah.
Kelly.
You know, I think it's a lot about balance, you know, giving feedback that is positive, you know, what's going good, what's going well, what they're doing really great, what's working within, you know, a design or you know, a concept, and then, you know, kind of talking about what's wrong. That, you know, it's a balance of, you know, you're making sure they don't walk away from the conversation that kind of how I felt, you know, when I've had some really harsh criticism before, like I can't do this anymore, but, you know, really wanting them to walk away with, okay, I'm grounded in something good, and then, you know, moving, this is what I have to work on. Just again, kind of the balance of, you know, not to tear someone down, but to, you know, give them that more of that, what is it called? Constructive criticism, you know.
Is there, before I throw it over to Anthony and Melody, there's a certain degree of, and I'm sure it's nested within the greater question here about maintaining those relationships and you know, not the idea of trying to keep your friends that you've made in the trenches, and now you're the boss and you're going to have to do that constructive criticism or be brutally honest, and they might not like to hear that from their friend, and all of a sudden you might risk losing that friendship because you're having to make the hard calls, you're having to make the hard choices, i.e., for example, yeah, your design didn't hit the mark. So, and I've been working with you and it just ain't working. So I'm pulling you off the project. But I thought we were friends. You weren't like this before. You've changed. And it's like, of course I've changed. I'm the boss now. You know, Anthony, Melody, have you experienced something like that, or have you had to deal with like keeping those friendships? Especially you, Anthony. You said everyone's friends that you work with. Have you ever encountered that, or have you seen that? Or Melody, have you done that? Who wants to go first? Who wants to go first?
I mean, I could go first. I would say it has been a challenge because some of, my designers are really also my closest friends. Like we go and hang out or we'll go travel together. So that was a challenge over the years, but I just started just being real honest when it gets to those tough conversations where I'm just like, hey, I'll put them in a room like, hey, I'm putting my manager hat on now. Like there's not joking anymore. Just being straightforward with them. And then I've also learned over the years to not automatically tell them exactly what to do, but get them to start again, going back to like thinking and asking them like, what are their thoughts before I get to the, hey, we need to change this out or whatnot. But sometimes, again, it's just going back to like, I'm straightforward. I'm like, all right, we're cutting the friendship right now. And now it's like manager time. Like
transparency, and you're very clear about,
yeah.
I'm putting this hat on, not the ball. I'm turning the ball cap around, so
and then yeah, sometimes they'll think because you guys are friends, so they'll make like snarky comments and stuff to you also. And I'm like, oh wait, hold, pause. Like, but yeah.
A couple of thoughts. I mean, in my industry of like designing software, there's very few conversations about artistic styles unless you're completely redesigning a visual design language for a company like Facebook, which doesn't happen, right? Or you're, like it doesn't happen that often. So like, I think a couple of things, like for us, it's about alignment and consensus building. So whether it's like service design, product design, or even visual design, we have a series of workshops that we've created that build team alignment. So, it helps guide everyone to make sure they're on the same path, because it's not about what we want or our styles. It's about what's best for the business, right? And then I think, everyone's different. We talked about that earlier. You have to know who you're working with and the way that they take feedback the best. And so like, instead of creating like a agency-wide like critique style, we developed a framework, but we let each of our teams modify that with their own critique charter. So we let the designers decide how they want to be critiqued, and then we hold them accountable for maintaining that system or changing it. But I think if you're in a situation where you're expecting good feedback, your manager expects the context to give the right feedback. So if you just ask someone like, what do you think about this? You're going to get a lot of feedback that you probably don't want to hear. But if you say the context, the goal was to accomplish this goal, this is how I think this accomplishes it, then your creative director, design director can give context with that context, because they're not looking at that file every day like you are. They need to often be reminded of what they're being asked to give feedback on. And then I think sometimes as a leader, because I get advice from a lot of junior people like you all do too. I think it's sometimes okay to just be like, hey, I want to talk to you about this as a friend or as your boss, or can I get advice from you as a friend? Or like, I think just, just like relationships, I think sometimes you have to let the other person know what kind of feedback you're about to give them or what kind of feedback you want to hear from them.
Proper context, very important in any situation, right? Thanks, everybody. That was a good question. Do we have any more juicy ones, Brett?
Yeah, I think I got probably 2, maybe 3 more, depending on how the next 10 minutes go here. But
all right, guys, that's code for keep it short.
One of the questions we have, or it's actually several questions we have, is around just like being in a position of, as a designer, whatever role you might be in, but not having the not feeling like you're being seen or having the ability to move up within your organization. So what advice would you have to somebody to get either, backup or support from your leadership, or something that they can do to continue to move up the path that they want, or, go a different direction? I mean,
Great question. All about visibility. And I think a few of you kind of touched a little bit on that earlier on this evening about an introvert, or I'm not the flashy dancing salesperson in front of the crowd. Kelly, do you want to talk about this a little bit?
Sure. I think, man, that's kind of hard. So I think you have to realize there's a lot of factors that go into promotions, right? It's a lot about timing. It's about the business, the clients you have, the growth in those clients. Again, there's more to it than just your performance that goes into advancement. A lot of times, does this client need a senior? Are they paying for a senior? So there's more to it than just you. So sometimes it's not that you're being overlooked. It's just that there's not the timing's not right.
There isn't a business need. There isn't a business need at the time, right?
Exactly. But I would say speak up. I think something I didn't do a lot in my career that probably did lead to me feeling like I was overlooked, is because I just never spoke up and said, I want that next position. I'm ready for it. And if you don't think I am, what do I need to do to get there? So I don't think I had that open conversation with my leaders at times. So I think that would be my best advice. If you think you're being overlooked, then go have a conversation about what you want.
And that can be hard for some folks, depending on their personality type, to even just raise a hand and go, hi, look at me, is like, please don't look at me,
Yeah.
Any other introverts out there that could have a little trick up their sleeve on how to get that courage or to find that support to get you to that conversation? Anyone? Homan?
Yeah, I think some things that I've seen others do that might have felt like that is just like volunteering their time and on other pieces of business, or on like maybe non-billable work and just the agency work, and getting that exposure in a different way to be able to show what you can do. Because I guess depending on the size of your agency, I've worked in two companies of 8 creative teams of like 5 of us to like hundreds or whatever, and I could see how you can get lost. And I remember being in bigger agencies and having those feelings. So yeah, I'd say like just reach out to people and ask if they need help, or find different ways to contribute creative that might give you some shine.
Get out of your lane, stick your neck out, put yourself in an uncomfortable situation, basically, right? Mm-hmm. Anthony, Melody, you have anything you want to add?
Two-way street. Manager, direct report, two-way street. That's all I got.
That was nice and brief. Thank you. Mel?
No, I this is reflecting back to what Kelly mentioned too. It's just like what I've learned in the past too, not being able to speak up and not like speak up in front of everybody, but like just being able to have that open, candid conversation with your manager. Like Anthony says, like a two-way street. Like if you feel like you want goals set or growth too, it is both ways, because sometimes like as us, we're multitask and we're doing so much, and that sometimes we're like, oh, we got to step back and be like, I didn't realize this person over here is like, that's what they're craving for, as far as in like making sure that I'm benchmarking them sort of situation. So everybody is different, but definitely if you want that opportunity for growth, I would definitely say having that intimate conversation with your manager. And honestly, if after a couple, trials, and if it's not, good for you, I mean, got to continue to keep growing and get to the next level, then, look for different opportunities. I mean, you don't want to get stagnant either. So
yeah. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I'm going to throw one more in here, and I think we'll be able to wrap things up. But we had a couple questions around inclusivity and things of that nature. So how can we create a more inclusive workspace for designers with disabilities? And what are some tips or tricks that or advice that you all have found in your own agencies to do that?
It's a very, very good question, and a very specific question. Does anyone have any insights on that? Inclusivity, and obviously D&I is a big deal now. Unfortunately, it's only just now that it is becoming a conversation that a lot of folks are having in the workplace. so, but it doesn't stop at just, cultural differences, racial differences, gender differences, but also ability differences. So what does anyone have any thoughts on that? It's a very, very good question. I imagine it's something that we haven't really had to face a whole lot of, and I will say that. I mean, especially in our industry, if there are certain disadvantages that someone might have that'll prevent them from doing the job, it's going to immediately take them out of the running for said job. So, but there are other cases too where people might have a disability that is not necessarily a physical one or very evident, or might not necessarily keep them from doing a job in a way that is quite so obvious. Has anyone dealt with anything of that nature that you, or can offer up a thought on how we might be on the lookout for that? Of course, without getting to, I know that it kind of treads in some strange areas in terms of, what you can and cannot ask, in the hiring process. And that's also an interesting sort of subject in of itself. But any thoughts on this very specific inquiry?
I think it's kind of different depending on the company you work for. Like for me, it's easy because I'm a minority. My business partner is a minority and a female. 70% of our company is female. Like we just don't see these things, right? Like we just hire great people, right? So we've had people on our team, they're like colorblind, right? You don't know that when you find that out, like after you work with them, you're like, okay, if they let you know, then you can help them. Like now you might realize when that might be struggling with some things like visual design exercises. So, again, being that it's a team sport, you gotta let people know where your strengths are and where you need help. But I think that, I don't know, the short answer for me is I also think that more people just need to apply, at least for companies like me, whether it's D&I on all spectrums, we just need more applicants.
And to build off of that, something you said previously in the last question, it's a two-way street. And I just noticed someone in the chat offering up a little point, which I think will jog some of you guys' thought processes here on this question, that those folks with disabilities might need to be forthcoming about that. Like, for example, what you just said, Anthony, if someone is colorblind, you're not going to find out unless they say so, or, you reach an obstacle that occurs because of that notion. And then comes that hard conversation of like, why is this always like this? And it's like, oh, well, this is why. And it's like, oh, I had no idea. And that kind of goes into that weird gray space again about hiring processes and what you should and shouldn't ask when you're hiring folks, and the other way around, what you should and shouldn't divulge when applying for jobs. So that, I think this is a very complex and complicated situation that deserves a lot more attention and a larger brain trust with about these things, because it's important, and we cannot exclude anyone for a reason that we shouldn't. Does anyone else have anything to add to this? Melody, David.
I mean, it's it's an interesting question to answer. So I just feel like we have to look at people in a more human way than we have in the past, in terms of these are just employees that are working for us.
Mm-hmm.
And just being able to understand and have a mutual respect for each other. So, I mean, obviously I think there has to be, understanding these circumstances, having training, working with HR departments to educate people and to make people aware of, things that they might not be aware of in themselves. So it's like everybody needs to work harder and dig deeper and do better. And I think, there are companies that are, legitimately, they want to do that and they're willing to admit that and make that step forward.
It's fair. It's fair. And anything else?
I mean, it goes back to, knowing your people and knowing what they need to be successful, and, being able to accommodate whatever they need to do their best work. I think that whether they have a disability or, they just need, or someone that just needs an extra time to do something. I think it's just again, goes back to, no matter if you have a disability or not, it's just knowing the person that works for you and knowing what they need.
I mean, 100% going back to what I mentioned is knowing everybody's individual and personality and what drives them, what motivates them, and how to maximize their ability. Like, so, and going back to the whole D&I too, is like, like only if we can all just kind of like just get around a table, and how much, if we all have like the diversity around the table, and how much ideas can come out of it. It is sad that we have to deal with that. It's crazy to me.
Just like it's unfortunate that we're only just now dealing with being open about these issues and having these discussions. But hey, it's happening, and we need to keep that
Conversation going too.
Keep it going, continue the process. And wouldn't you know, here we are in a panel discussion about creative direction and creative management. And what did we talk about? We talked about people. Every answer revolved around knowing your team, knowing people, caring about the people that are doing the work for you, understanding what motivates them, understanding how to connect with them, and understanding how to enable them. And I think it's safe to say that great leaders do that. And I think all y'all are great leaders and are great people for being here tonight and sharing your stories, making yourself, vulnerable in front of, everyone all over the country tonight, evidently watching. So thank you for that. Thank you for your time. Brett, is there any last bits we got to talk about here before we close shop tonight?
Yeah, well, again, as Alex said, we really, really appreciate everybody's time that y'all gave us tonight. Our four panelists, fantastic conversation. I dropped some links in the chat for if you want to follow them on LinkedIn, check them out there. And I'm actually going to pull up a slide deck here to close out and have a few more closing items here. All right, so hopefully y'all can see that. But yeah, again, thank you to everybody for coming tonight, both the panelists and then our attendees. This has been awesome, and we wouldn't do this without everybody that's here. I mean, it's about the people, and everybody here is the people that makes this so special. So really appreciate it. And a couple of things, we do have some upcoming events that will be down the pipeline after this one. So the next event we have coming up is going to be on March 11th. That's a UX Design Roundtable. That'll be 6:30 p.m. The event is live, so you can sign up for it now on our website at aigadfw.org. And then after that, we will be going into a spring community meeting, which will be 2 speaker presentations there. And then it's our free meeting that we do that allows you to just learn more about the organization. So whether you're a member or not, which we do have a lot of non-members here attending tonight. So if you like this and want to learn more about it, you should definitely either attend this or just go to our website, find out what you can find out about AIGA as an organization in our local chapter. We would love to have you join us for one of these events. And as a reminder, our shared purpose is to create a place where design thrives for everyone. And if you enjoy this event and want to support that purpose, you can visit aigadfw.org and join us, become a member. And again, I want to thank everybody who was here with us tonight, our panelists who provided their time for this. I hope you got a lot out of this. And again, we will be releasing the video after this, so you can check out that in your inboxes in the coming weeks. And there's their websites as well. You can find it also on our event. And yeah, have a great night. Thank you, everybody. We really appreciate your time for coming out here.
Thanks, everybody.